Hey, folks, thank you very much for checking in with us on this new season of On the Call, first episode of TRINI Corner. I'm introducing Mr. Colin N. Williams, talented photographer, producer, and creative director. Hello, folks. Welcome to the new season of On the Call podcast. And our first episode on this season of TRINI Corner, we're introducing Mr. Colin N. Williams in a minute, because you know the bio is going to be coming up soon. This TRINI Corner season is sponsored by Caribbean Airlines and is supported by our Consul General, J. Andre Laveau, our Trinidad and Tobago Consul General in New York. So, please like, follow, subscribe, share, drop a comment, and check out our membership page for the after show, because there you're going to learn a little more about Colin Williams. But before we do that, you know what I like to do. We got to find out who Colin Williams is, in my eyes. Colin Williams is a New York-based talented photographer, producer, and creative director. He was born as a twin in Trinidad and Tobago, and raised in the vibrant urban landscape of New York City. His parents, Noel and Eastlyn Williams, instilled in him a strong sense of identity and connection to his Caribbean roots. Colin has deep familial ties to Trinidad, tracing lineage back to his great-grandfather, Paul Williams, who immigrated from Martinique to Trinidad and was pivotal in the cultural movement known as the Soul Boys. Growing up, Colin excelled in sports, notably as a member of the basketball team at Arima Senior Comprehensive in Trinidad. He's also a devoted father to three beautiful, you should see them, beautiful daughters, often likening them to a box of chocolates, showcasing his love and appreciation for them. He attended the Germain School of Photography and the New School of Visual Arts, where he honed his skills in photography and visual storytelling. His initial foray into the creative world began with modeling, which introduced him to the high-profile fashion industry of Japan. He secured there notable campaigns for brands like Suzuki, Nikon, and Fila. With over 40 years of experience in the film and photography industry, Colin has established a remarkable career, serving as a first and second assistant director, location manager, and freelance photographer for esteemed publications such as the New York Times, New York Daily News, and Essence.com. He has worked with companies, and I'm going to list them. He's worked with companies and celebrities such as, companies first, Conrad, New York Hotel, American Express, Citibank, Lancome, AIG, Bloomingdale's, Macy's, Caribbean Airlines, JetBlue, Forbes Magazine, InStyle, Ocean Style Magazine, Time Saying, I'm still naming them all. And this might not even be all. Uptown Magazine, Vanguard Media, the Bahamas Tourism Authorities, Barbuda Tourist Board, Caribbean Tourism Organization, Trinidad and Tobago Tourism, Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, the City of New York, and it goes on. But on the celebrity side, Al Jarreau, Alvin Ailey, Grace Jones, Isaac Hayes, Judith Jameson, Lil Kim, Martha Stewart, Method Man, Obama, Penny Comisiong, Quincy Jones, Whoopi Goldberg, and Harry Belafonte, who has praised Colin for his impactful work and who once said to him, "If I knew what I was fighting for back then, I would never have wasted my 20s." He founded the Eric Williams Appreciation Day through the Dr. Eric Williams Preservation Project, honoring the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Additionally, he has volunteered with the Center of Arts Education, creating photography workshops for youth in New York City. Colin received the Nina Simone Young Gifted and Black Entrepreneurial Award in January 2010, recognizing his contributions to the arts and entrepreneurship. He believes in the importance of storytelling and cultural preservation, stating, "It's our responsibility to tell our stories and celebrate each other along the way by passing the oral knowledge to the next generation." In addition to his photography and event production work, Colin has actively campaigned to promote Trinidad and Tobago's visibility, asking people to find the nation on the world clock. A question that elicited priceless reactions and underscored the need for greater awareness of his birthplace. His personal projects often focus on historical figures and events significant to Trinidad and Tobago, such as the 4 Olympians who represented the nation in the 1960s and the legacy of Eric Williams. Colin is more than just an award-winning photographer. He is a passionate advocate for Caribbean culture and history, a steward of the stories that define his heritage, and a mentor to the younger generation. His career, marked by significant achievements in photography, film production, and community service, highlights his commitment to both his craft and his homeland. And through his work, he continues to inspire others to appreciate and celebrate the vibrant tapestry of Trinidad and Tobago's cultural landscape. So for more information about Colin and to explore his portfolio, visit his website. And what do you think it'll be? colinwilliamsphotography.com. Is that correct? Or you could connect with him on social media at Soulboy's Lifestyle or at Colin W. Photo. So, I'm going to get to Colin now. Thank you, Caribbean Airlines. Thank you, Giandro Laveau. Here we go.
I'd like to thank you very much for allowing me to be on your platform. I think it's very necessary, the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Because it's needed much more than anywhere else. In our society, I should say. And we've taken the time on a cold January, should I date the day? Just a few days after New Year's of the 2025 means a lot. So I'm glad that you are here and I'm able to afford you the time.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so honored to be sitting with you, to tell you the truth.
Thank you.
So, what initially drew you to photography and storytelling, and how has that journey evolved since then? Because you were modeling, right?
Yeah.
Or was it before?
But, you know, my dad, when I was younger, came to Trinidad and he bought a camera. It was a Polaroid camera. And I think I was probably 7 because we were about to move to the States, I believe. And that entire night, you know, he gave me the Polaroid camera and I'm taking pictures. All the pictures came out black.
Right.
And that stuck with me then. I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? I'm putting the flash on this camera. It's supposed to come out correct. It's not happening. And then later on in the daytime, he showed me there was lighting. It was poor lighting. I just thought you take a picture, it's going to come out, right? And ever since then, that has always been my goal, to get perfect lighting, because photography is all about lighting. You could have whatever fancy lens, if you don't have the proper lighting, you know? And again, the modeling thing was something I never wanted to do anyway.
Oh.
No, it wasn't my thing. You know, there were guys called Tyson with big bodies. You know, I'm just wearing a size 40 long suit, green in a suit, and I'm not, you know, I ain't got no big chest, all that stuff. But one of the things I was blessed with having the size 40 long, which is a showroom size for men model, or dress size. So that is how it got me into, you know, I'll show my portfolio to photograph, and they look at me like, do you mind trying that suit on? And after the third time, I kind of just give up the camera. You know? So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did your upbringing in Trinidad and Tobago, along with your experiences in New York City, shape your artistic vision?
Well, my grandparents, My mother was a Shango Baptist. My grandparents would make sure we go to church every Sunday. That I wanted to be a priest.
You're kidding.
I mean, I did all the acrolytes, the first commission, everything else.
Right.
And I remember one day I decided to go pray on some oil. Because my grandmother, I believe, had arthritis. That's probably 6 or 7 years old. And I rubbed her leg and she said, oh yeah, my legs feel better now. I guess she's probably egging me on. And she saw me walking out the house with some oil. She says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to fix Miss Isla's foot. She says, get back in the house. Because I prayed on the oil. Suppose if it healed my grandma, it could heal everyone else. So, you know, I'm going to be a priest. So, you know, but saying that was the whole idea of you went out Saturday night, you can go to church on Sunday. So what they call in America conservative and all these different things, it was just normal family upbringing in the Caribbean, in my household. And I saw everyone else did it, you know. You know, if there was something to be fixed around the house, like my grandfather would do it. If there was a drain that was clogged up, it wasn't calling a superintendent or whatever it is, you know, we will help clean that. So I grew up having that kind of structure of maintaining what's yours and community. My dad, later on, I found out a lot about his history from his family, which he kind of kept it low, and his reasons for that. And my mom, one of the most dynamic women. There's people who talk about their mom, but for what she had to endure growing up in Tobago in the 30s as a young woman, I give to my generation before, my parents and those people who were in the 70s and 80s, so much more appreciation. Because if you think of the things I'm dealing with now in our generation, and they had to deal with it back then, when it was much more, how do I say, barbaric when it comes to,
So those are the things that shaped.
Oh yeah, those are the things that shaped me, just trying to understand their story, where they came from, even though they didn't say it, but I could see it,
Can you describe a defining moment in your career that significantly influenced your work as a photographer and creative director?
Maya Angelou. Somewhere I heard she says, don't complain about something you could change. I have the lens. Yeah. I see what is out there. I'm not seeing what is being published. I hear on the news what's being said. It's not really and truly my life experience. I could change it. So I took the photos that they wouldn't publish, especially when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. Mm-hmm. You pick up the 4 magazines leaving at the airport, it's not the people you see in the streets. It's one copy throughout. Every magazine will show you the same demographic of individuals. Right. Where I know Carnival is much more than that. Right. It's a whole generation of 4-year-olds and cradles and body shapes and types and different ethnicity, but it doesn't reflect in the magazines. Mm-hmm. And I did that on my own. I realized, I said, listen, I can't complain about something when I can change. I have the ability to change. I could be like everyone else talk about it, but I can do something about it. And again, with Maya Angelou, saying what she said, I don't know why she said it, but I know exactly what she meant because I lived it. So I got photograph magazines. I found online magazines that would publish my work. And then I went back now into the roots of Carnival, which is not the feathers and beads, but the bending of wire. Mm-hmm. The Carnival experience would have to take you to behind the bridge, all right? And if it wasn't for 1771, there'd be no Carnival as we know it. Mm-hmm. So that is where I actually changed my lens from the bikinis and the whatever it is, and got out there in the morning at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to get the real Juve, go behind the bridge and capture the reenactment of the Camberley. And I said, you know what, that's it. The story that they don't tell, I'll tell it.
That's right. What are some of the most challenging aspects of your profession, and how do you overcome them? Challenges. Because you have a body of work and you've worked with so many big companies, but it couldn't be smooth all the time.
Well, it was because I'm a Trinidadian, and I go back into the words of Eric Williams and the Lloyd Best and all these guys, they didn't ask for permission to do anything. Eric didn't ask permission to be who he was. They thought he was the man to be. They bestowed him the leader of the political party that he didn't create, but he just led it. All right. So when it comes to certain things that I wanted to do, the only thing they could do that, they will hear the name Colin Williams. They will see the work. They haven't seen the individual.
Right.
So when I travel to other parts of the United States and I have to hire a local assistant,
right.
Normally it will be someone that doesn't look like me because he fits the landscape of where I need to get in Wyoming. And they will rush out and then introduce themselves to him. And he would say, no, this is Colin. And they would still, because again, people have, like, what travels first? Light or sound? Light. Even though they see the work, it doesn't match.
Right.
It doesn't match. So I've had obstacles in that way where I think I would use my images to educate people, but they'll think, it's probably it's too black or whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you once said that, quote, my inspirations for lighting came from Albert Watson,
Yeah.
who I assisted for a few years and had mentored me in finding my personal style in photography.
Yeah.
How do you approach the process of capturing an image, and what elements do you consider essential for telling that story?
Lighting is everything, like I said, right? Mm-hmm. And working with this genius, master of lighting, Mr. Albert Watson. He has a book called Cyclops that I have. And I've always tried to find, because people, I could look at anyone, I could tell, okay, the light's coming from here, the light's coming from there. But with him, the things this man has done, I guess AI is probably not going to try to catch up to his work. And I've always tried to, I wouldn't say copy, because I worked with a hairdresser years ago. And I mentioned something to him about, I'm trying to copy. He said, hey, hold on, Colin, hold on. Always do you. He said, because 10, 20 years from now, they're going to ask you, can you duplicate this? And if you didn't do it the first time, it wasn't you could never do it again. So I always, no matter what it is, I know my lighting, I know how to get to it because I created it. Right. All right? Even though I saw it, whatever it is, I tweak certain things. So Albert Watson, again, sat me down one day in the back of a truck. He says, Colin, basically he said, hang out with me. He said, because what they taught you in school, no school could teach you what you're going to learn from me. Just catch on. Mm-hmm. And he was right. He was very, very right.
What motivates you to focus on Caribbean culture in your work, and how do you ensure authenticity in your storytelling?
Well,
like just as you say, go behind the bridge and da-da-da-da.
Like
I get it, but just so the audience understands.
Like I tell people, I cannot go to Japan and spend 10 days and tell their story. I don't expect any writer to come into Trinidad and tell the entire story of Trinidad. So what I have done, even in my research, like the places that I told you about, we have to go visit, that you said, speak to the people. Get to know them, not live with them, like I went to Brazil and people were like, don't go to Brazil, the favelas, you'll get killed. I was in the favelas. Didn't speak Portuguese or any other language, I don't smoke weed. What was the similarity? It's because, you're around who you consider your people. I didn't go with a guard up or whatever it is. And of course it's a dangerous place. But to whom? Just getting it right. We have a way of just do it. We have to do it with care. You feel me? Yes. And people just want to do it for whatever they want to do it for I don't do things for the likes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I came from a time before the likes and before caller ID.
Right.
You feel me? So that is what we have to get back into. And that's one of the most tangible things that you can give to someone. Whereas, if you talk to old people now, which I've done recently, interview an old man who's like 70 and 80 something, and they could talk about things when they were 7 years old. I can't even tell you anything about when I was 40 years old, because it was such a time where people did deal with people.
Yes.
Where everything of substance meant something.
Yes.
And this friend of mine by the name of Duff, I call him friend, but he's in his 80s, and he can talk about his singing in a choir at 11 years old. And what the conductor said to him and his classmates and everything else, called the name of the school, his friends, I don't know one guy from school.
It's amazing how much they,
They retained, yeah, because they lived.
Oof. You once also said when old people talk or get together, we should try to look at them. Some time ago, we lost the patience our parents had with us, and I'm guilty of that crime. What are you doing about it?
Well, my dad was this 6 foot tall macho man that felt no pain, showed nothing. And his very last days, I saw how vulnerable he was. But I couldn't help. I was helpless. He became, he's over 200 pounds. And the last thing I'm thinking, if they could get him off this dialysis machine, I'll move him into my home where I could personally take care of him. Because I know they're just wiping him and not really cleaning him,
Right.
And right now, my mother, who just turned 90 on December 11th, I was able to spend her birthday with her. And, when you take your time, you look in your old people's eyes, and I look at it right now, my mother don't care anything about having a pretty dress or this and that. She just wants to make sure that you're happy, even though she's going through her old days. And I refuse to put her in a home.
Right.
Because once you put them in a home, I think you put them in a storage place where you can call and say they're doing. But as long as we can afford it, she's going to stay in a home and get the right people
around
her to take care of it. And that's what, that's my little thing.
What role do you believe photography plays in preserving and promoting culture and history, particularly in the Caribbean?
In the Caribbean, we have one season, but we have seas. And depending on whatever time of the year it is, the ocean is going to be the same. So when you're documenting these things, don't just tell me when I get to Jamaica in June, it's going to be the same as in August.
Right.
Or December.
Right.
Because the water's changed, seaweed comes in and this and that. I would say get off the beaten path, if you could really do it and you have, do like the real photographers do, people who document things, like I have a photo in my house and I took it from a National Geographic guy. He traveled to wherever he went to because he heard about these monkeys that lives way up in these trees. And he traveled about 18, how many pounds, how many bags he traveled with, and he wound up just having this one camera and being hoisted up on this tree. And when he came down, he printed this photo and he says, if everyone, he's the only one that had this particular picture of this monkey.
Right.
Because why? He's the only one who's able to do it and preserve it. And that's what we should be doing.
Because he took the time, he spent the time.
Around these monkeys are flying ants that flies and bites you. And he endured that and waited up there to capture that one shot of this monkey. We don't want to take time anymore.
Right. Right.
We don't want to take time. We have it very instant right now. And that's it. But there's so much that goes behind an image. And you'll get the real tangibleness of it if you spend time just with the people or just.
In what ways do you engage with and mentor the next generation of photographers and creatives?
In what ways? Well, everything is going to go now on cell phones. So I teach a class now with the cell phones, but I realize now they're back into a film.
Right.
So the way I go about it is, of course, I introduce the cell phones.
Right.
And then when I bring out the Polaroids and the regular Hasselblad cameras, they're blown away by that. Because the same way I'm blown away, when I first developed my first photo, we had to do it in the cans with the chemicals. And when I actually blew it up, I got a sense like, wow, I created this. Because I could have created it if I wanted it to be darker or lighter,
right.
If I could have burned the edges in. And that is what I want the younger generation to know, that when you take a photo, don't tell me about, I'm gonna fix it in Photoshop.
Right.
Get it right the first time.
Right.
Get it right the first time. One of the things I did, in school, and they said, listen, when you're going to buy stuff, do not buy inferior tripods, because that's what you're going to put your camera on. If you buy a $20 tripod to hold a $400 camera,
right.
All right? And when you're shooting, even tell my daughters now, when you're shooting, don't say, I'm just doing a snapshot, because you never know, because it happened to me. I photographed someone on a flight. It was Grace Jones at a New Year's party that they invited me to. I was much more interested in other things than her. When I photographed her, I didn't really take my time to do it. But guess what? The label called and asked for these photos later on, and I was like, some of them wasn't in focus, some of them was this, because I was much more into, not trained mind, young mind, focusing on the party and not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You spoke about Albert Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Who were your other mentors?
There are two guys that come to mind. There's God Akins and Ken Nahum, two photographers. But then there's a painter, old painter from Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Leroy Clark.
Mm-hmm.
He has died now. And he said to me, yo, Colin, you're a good photographer. He said, but excuse us, stop fucking around that boy. And, you know, him coming from who he is as an older gentleman, that I thought that, you know, his work is beyond what I've seen of whoever it is. And I sat down 1 year and I documented every single painting he did. I'll go back and forth.
Right.
And once I get into Trinidad, I say to my mom, hey mom, I'm here. And I would just take the car, head to his home. And he would tell, look, I have more stuff. I still, you got to start painting. You know what I'm saying? But he was wonderful. But God Akins, one of the most talented individuals I've known when it comes to lighting also. Mm-hmm. But he would do it all for $2. He will bring reflectors, $2 lights, and light the most amazing portraits. Mm-hmm. With a $2 lighting, because that's what the budget he had. Compared to Albert Watson, right. He just have to give what he needs. Right. And then there was Ken Nahum, Revlon, Neutrogena, all these big things that he actually showed me. And one of the things he said, I'll tell you, know your shit. Mm-hmm. He says, because 95% of this that you're doing is going to be bullshit. The 5% is you getting it right. Mm-hmm. So in other words, and I always taught myself that I have to get it right the very first time. Mm-hmm. So the pressure is always on me on prepping, mm-hmm. learning, knowing exactly before. I always go into an image knowing what the end result is going to be. What is the printed matter is going to be. Now, I'm not going to shoot and then we'll try to find something out of it. No, that's not me. I want to know what you expect, right? What the end result is, and I'm shooting for that. And most of the times I get it the very first time, but then I'll just play along, you know, because once I pull the Polaroid, I look in the back of the camera, I look at the monitor, I got it.
That said, you did a project with Lufthansa. Talk to us about that.
Like I said, got an email from Lufthansa airline corporation out in Germany somewhere. I thought it was a joke. I ignored it. I traveled, I came back, the email came again, and I responded. I said, okay, guess, please send me could they introduce themselves? They told me they saw my images, they're interested in 2 or 3 images from. I said, sure, well, send me your selects. Didn't hear back from them. And when they sent me my select, because I already sat down already trying to pull images that I know that they would want, which is feathers and beads and.
Yes.
And what they sent me, I wasn't shocked but surprised. It was a photo that I photographed on a Monday morning in Trinidad Carnival, where they created a sort of a float in one of these wire bending things we talked about, which right. I always try to get those images because those are the ones that nobody photographed unless he's on a big stage. But what it was basically an arrangement of steel pans, the tenor, the guitar, the bass, and the guy walking around in it. But the person on top was Lord Kitchener. I knew it was Lord Kitchener because he had on his hat and his suit, everything. And that's the image that they wanted for the cover of the executive class magazine that was going to fly throughout the Lufthansa, whatever it was, for I think 6 months.
And how long ago was that?
Maybe about 3 years ago. About 3 years
recent,
ago.
really.
And I said to myself, these people know something that we don't know. You know, like I talked, Kes, one of our soca kings, or however people want to describe him, but we were on a boat ride a couple of years ago. And whenever we don't talk all the time. Whenever we meet, we always find a little corner to talk about arts and culture, arts and culture, arts and culture. Yeah. And he made a statement one day and he said, Colin, Trinidadians are playing small goal with gold nuggets. And I understood what he meant right away. And is that we have on that little, and I describe it as a little dusty island because that's what it is. You know, we don't have beautiful beaches, but I tell everyone the people overrides everything. All right? Then you had David Rudder said to me, he said, Colin, you know, we could get gold, you know, but we'll settle for bronze. That's David Rudder, you know. And that is the, I mean, prove me right then or prove me wrong, you know. Do you have a gentleman out here called Charles Ralston who has a record store, Charlie?
Yeah, we had him on the show.
He said, man, Colin, I love to see a TRINI party. Nobody could do better than we. But I would love to see them do the same for working, or something like that, you know. And I get it. You know, you can't disrupt anything when it comes to us party, you know, having a good time, but the same energy is not given. You know, you look at the guy called Keishan Walcott, the one who's sort of traveling. Yeah. I was told that he had 2 more chances, but because he already broke that record, or he set a new, why not throw another 2 more? You probably would have done something else, you know, because your first one's actually like a little warm-up probably, or your best throw, but the other 2 throws you could have, and they're definitely going to take the longest throw anyway, you know. But so
something in the water.
God is a tree, right?
Explain to us why Trinidadians are called Trinidadians. Where did that come from? There we go.
This man. I would say this man.
Yes.
I would say him because doing my research, when I want to do the Eric Williams story, I have to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I see him as whatever it is. The other person may not see him as he is, you know. I have 3 daughters. One may have a different look on dad, whatever it is. My wife will say, whatever, you know. So I found out when they were doing the taking over Chagaramas.
Right. And Chagaramas, so the people know, Chagaramas is
one of the base that the U.S. had acquired or tried to acquire after independence, the junior independence from England.
Right.
And Eric said to them Dr. Eric Williams, I think, said to them, look, listen, hey, you acquired that when we were under the crown.
Right.
Now that we are an independent country, you have to come negotiate with us and the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
All right. We talked about him going around the Caribbean, even though Antigua was paramount in certain things, but they all came together, and Eric never really said why he wanted them to join in. You know, I mean, it's a much more deeper story. I'm just giving the surface.
Right.
So when it was done, he was able to, again, this little country, this little island called Trinidad and Tobago, right? I've asked, you know, I'm going to come back to your question, but you ask anyone, democracy, leadership, whatever it is, right? Strong leadership. When you think of any country in this world that has had a political party or a prime minister for the length of time that Eric Williams and the PNM had in power. without dictatorship, without changing dates, without martial law, that was people's national movement, right? Strong. Now, that was Trinidad and Tobago. I don't want it as...
Right.
That was under aircraft.
Yes.
And then again, think of which country in the world that an American forces have occupied their land, and when asked to leave, it was left without any bloodshed.
Right.
There's none. Even Panama.
Right.
They left Trinidad and Tobago without bloodshed.
Right.
And that only could have happened with someone like him. So when they leave, you couldn't just leave. You see all those roads that these people couldn't use before, and all they mash up, fix it up. The deep water harbor, and we need a wing in the library. So if you go into UWI right now, it's right there. John F. Kennedy. So all these things, you will leave, but you gotta leave something behind. Right. So when Eric finally got what he wanted from the support of the other Caribbean islands, as far as getting the US out, they had no clue what he was working on. That's why they call us tricky land, because he never said what he wanted them to sign on for. They know wanted to get the Yankees out. Right. For that reason, because once you get them out, there was an economic power stronghold behind that, and there was also a sense of pride. Right? So that's why they call us Trinidadians, not because we're tricky, based on what he did. That's what I was told in the beginning, right? Based on what he did. Yeah. And how he went about doing it, getting them to sign on to a package that they wasn't really aware of, but they know he was brilliant,
Right.
Leadership.
Right.
First organizer.
Now tell us the story about the 4 Olympians and the painting. How did that come about?
Oh, man. I lived in Japan in the late 80s, early 90s, something like that. And my wife, now then my girlfriend, we used to live in a place called Satagaya, Shimao, and there was a park not too far from where we lived. So about 7 minutes walk. I'll go do my little jogging in the morning. One day I came out around the other side of the park and I saw this sign says, Komozawa Park Olympic Village. I said, oh, really? So I came home and I said, hey, Japan ever host the Olympics? She said, yeah, it was in that. Casually, she said, yeah, it's in that park. I said, really? I said, what? I wonder what year was that? So I did my research. It was 1964. I said, shit. 1964, that was the year I was born. So now you know my age, right? So I went ahead and I did a little bit of research. I said, I wonder if Trinidad and Tobago sent anyone to the Olympics. To my acknowledgement, we came up with medals. So I saw the names of these individuals, and I went to the Consul General office years before, and I'll see the little guy walking around. I said, wait, that's Edwin Roberts. That is the Edwin Roberts. Everyone knew who he was. I didn't know who he was. Right. But not in this way of like, wow, Edwin Roberts. So I said, Mr. Roberts, he said, yeah, you call. So we became friends. Right. One of my daughters got the job opportunity to open and run a store. It's a boutique store by a Canadian, Swedish company. I think it's called Sneakers and Stuff. It's more like one of these high-end boutique stores. And they were going to open in Tokyo, Japan. And she was getting set to go over to be lead or, to open the store. I heard the store is going to be the biggest sneaker store in Japan. Great. I said, okay. Listen on the news, Japan just got awarded to do the Olympic Games. Right away, bells started whistling. I say, this is it. The Japanese are very appreciative of people whoever they think is worthy of certain things, right? They like everything Black culture. But when I did the background story behind this now, I said, listen, what I wanted to do, this is my vision, to open in this store a sort of a Caribbean corner. I just say, right? So Trini talk. But I will try to get these 4 men who have gone to every single Olympic game on their own dime to sit in the audience to watch the games. They had plans to go to Tokyo. I said, if I can get these men to tie themselves on with my vision, but I need to get it figured out first, what I'm going to do. So I spoke to my daughter, and she said, Dad, don't you think, maybe a younger athlete? I said, yeah, for you. I said, but knowing the Japanese, they would appreciate more someone who was there 50 years ago.
Correct.
That they're still around.
Correct.
And the story behind it. I said, what I want to do is I want to speak to the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee. Instead of having our young athletes carry the flag, have these 4 men hold the flags and project a talking point now. Who are these 4 old men that's holding this flag?
Right.
Send out to the news media, these 4 men were in your country in 1964.
Right.
And you as again, when I did my research, the Japanese then didn't have much of athletes to put in. They wanted to host the games.
Right.
Remember, they were ostracized because they were part of the Hitler business.
Right.
They were part of Germany.
Right.
And they wanted to show the world that they have
Gone from there.
gone from that. They want to be part of what's going on now. They know for sure they wasn't supporting America. And definitely not England, because these were the allies that came and had bombed them.
Correct.
So after they did their little research and they saw the guys who were clocking times and they said, why not be in Trinidad and Tobago? So the Japanese adopted the Trinidad and Tobago athletes. Against, anytime they were up against England or America, they were adopted. So these gentlemen now went ahead and they did what they did. And they told the story. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a smaller media center, because when we get to these Olympic Games, you don't see, who do you see? You see Canada, Russia, England, blah, blah, blah. You don't see the small islands at all.
Right.
Jamaica will be there because they have Usain Bolt.
Right.
But what about Montserrat, St. Lucia, all these other places? You would never see them. So what I'll do is I'll set up a corner where these men will sit down and take questions or invite guests from the Caribbean. Because Bolt had no clue these guys existed. You know what I'm saying? He does his quarter mile. Right. And I said, this is what's going to happen. So everything was basically set. I found out that they had no sponsors. Then the backstory behind these men are very heroic. They came with bronze. As far as I'm concerned, they came with gold medals because they had to coach themselves. They had a coach, not really a coach. They knew, I guess, a couple of weeks before. They were here working, in the United States, doing hotel or whatever jobs they were doing, going to school, and got pulled to fly out to Japan. And the story I wanted to tell was, tell me your story. How did you guys leave, from here, go into Japan, and then the games got pushed out to October. The games were postponed or pushed around for whatever reason. Right. So it no longer was a summer Olympic game, when I'd been in October. Right. But they were conditioned because they were training here already in wherever part of the United States. But it still happens today. No government support, no uniform, no stipend, no accommodation, and they had to fend for themselves. And not just only them, but most of the athletes that came out of Trinidad and Tobago had to fend for themselves in doing certain things. And they've done it to this day. No matter what, they do it for country, not for the purse. So that's how that came about. And then, of course, COVID came, and it became a small studio thing instead of something I wanted really, really huge. The vision for that was huge because I had Adidas on board already. Because one of the guys told me, and he showed me, he have the only blanket, a souvenir that's still around from that Olympic game that I had documented. That he has. They chose athletes. The Japanese picked specific athletes that were given these blankets. I went to the Japanese memorial, Olympic memorial stuff. They had bags, but that particular blanket given to them by Adidas that says Tokyo 64, Japan 64 games. Amazing. Yeah, so we
How did the painting come about? Because there's a painting about that.
Miss Alicia Aberdeen was, I guess, how do I say, commissioned by the Consul General to do this, to paint this he said replica or portrait of these
Portrait,
men,
yeah.
of these men, and that again was supposed to be, you know, something much more on a grander scale, but it still lives there, and it happened, you know, and we were able to get what's his name, Shafa, one of the goalkeepers from Trinidad, I forgot his name right now, Shaka Hislop. So he came in, he was the host. Again, it went into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that became this. But she did an amazing job on that piece. I think it's even have some gold sparkles in there in that painting. Yeah. So that's how that painting came about. That's how that whole thing came about, because of something that should be done. And it shouldn't only be done, you know, because it was the 50th. You know, these men should be highlighted even now, because we have athletes now that are coming and doing very well. We just want a little bit more support.
Right.
You know, a little bit more concern.
So with all of this, in terms, the last question is, do you have any pet peeves? Or, let's put it this way, what is your biggest?
When you say pet peeve, can you?
Pet peeve could be, you know, you prefer to work in a certain way, and so that you,
Pre-production.
you know,
Pre-production.
you see somebody doing something like, wait a minute.
Pre-production.
Yeah.
Pre-production is very important. Pre-production. Planning. Planning. Because if that doesn't happen, it's chaos. At least have an idea that you could share with your team what we're going on. So they'll all be supportive, you know? But to say just do it.
Just to do. That's not the way it should be done with anything.
We have that behavior that doesn't work.
So guys, you've heard a lot about, and this is just the first conversation, right? You've heard a lot about Colin, from Colin. You listen to him about his work. You know some of his history, personally as well as work. You see where his passions lay. I am so very happy to have you on. I mean, really happy to have you on, because
Thank you.
because of my passions and interests as well. You just intersect very, very nicely. And you guys, thank you so much for checking in with us. Thank you to Mr. Williams. Thank you to the Consul General. Thank you to Caribbean Airlines, Warmth of the Islands. So much for stopping in. And so, thank you to Cheese and the OTC team. Like I always say, when you're on your beat, stay on the sunny, sunny side of the street safely. Be health conscious and kind to one another. And don't forget to give thanks for the little and big gifts as we strive through into this beautiful life. See you on the call. Become a member. Follow, like, share, do all of that other stuff. But check out ITC Inside the Call. Colin, thank you very, very much.
Always.
And thank you for being here for the next conversation. Appreciate it.